Iran calls it a historic moment and a new chapter of hope, agreeing to limit its nuclear program in return for the lifting of sanctions. It marks an end to a decade-long standoff. But how will it shape Iran's foreign relations? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Darine Abougaida. It's a deal that caps more than a decade of on and off negotiations, one that has the potential to transform the political landscape of the Middle East, as well as reset relations far further afield. A landmark agreement has been reached to curb Iran's nuclear program in talks between Tehran and the so-called P5+1 nations. That's the United States, Britain, China, France, Russia, and Germany. Well, the breakthrough has been broadly welcomed, but Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called it a bad mistake of historic proportions. Well, under this new agreement, some sanctions imposed by the U.S., European Union, and United Nations will be lifted once Iran abides by commitments to curtail its nuclear activity. A so-called snapback clause could see some sanctions reinstated if Iran violates the deal. Well, Tehran has also agreed to allow the UN's nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, manage inspections of nuclear sites. A UN arms embargo and missile sanctions will remain in place for 5 and 8 years respectively, but could be lifted sooner. That's if inspectors are satisfied that Iran's nuclear program is for peaceful purposes. Here's Al Jazeera's diplomatic editor, James Bays, who has more now from where the negotiations have been taking place in Vienna.
A historic deal, one that the key players here say will limit the threat from a nuclear Iran.
Today is an historic day.
But it's an agreement that will further anger opponents who say it's a dangerous and historic mistake.
Iran will get a jackpot, a cash bonanza of hundreds of billions of dollars, which will enable it to continue to pursue its aggression and terror in the region and in the world. This is a bad mistake of historic proportions.
It was Iran's foreign minister and the most senior EU foreign policy official who announced the deal that was finally sealed after intense negotiations in the early hours of the morning.
We are reaching an agreement that is not perfect for anybody, but it is what we could accomplish, and it is an important achievement for all of us.
It is a decision that can open the way to a new chapter in international relations and show that diplomacy, coordination, cooperation can overcome decades of tensions and confrontations. I think this is a sign of hope for the entire world, and we all know that this is very much needed in these times.
President Obama was quick to react, making it clear that if Congress tries to block the deal, he will act.
I am confident that this deal will meet the national security interests of the United States and our allies. So I will veto any legislation that prevents the successful implementation of this deal.
It's not clear if it was coordinated in advance, but immediately after the US president spoke, his Iranian counterpart followed suit. He hailed the deal as a new chapter between Iran and the international community. The focus will now move across the Atlantic, not just to the US Congress, but also to the UN Security Council, which is expected to ratify the deal as early as next week. James Bays, Al Jazeera, Vienna.
Let's bring in our guests. From Tehran, we have with us Ganbar Naderi. He's a political analyst and journalist for the Kayhan International newspaper. Joining us from Beirut, Joseph Keshishian. Joseph is a columnist for Gulf News. Thanks for being with us on Inside Story. Ganbar, is this a good deal or a bad deal for Iran?
No, it is a good deal. I mean, it's dreams come true for the politicians here, because we have ahead of us the parliamentary elections, the Assembly of Experts elections. So I can tell you with confidence that the government is going to win both of these crucial elections.
So what you're saying is this is a win-win for all involved, or simply for Iran?
No, it is. It is. I mean, all sides are winners in this, new gambit. But let's face it. This deal came too little. This deal is too little, and it is too late. We should have had this deal 15 years ago, when the region was not engulfed in violence and terrorism, when we had a good functioning government in Syria and Iraq. Now that this deal is on the table, and we have to clear up all this mess across the Middle East and North Africa. So, I mean, everybody is happy here. Everybody welcomes this deal. But as I said, it is too little and too late. I don't think at the same time this deal is going to help us fix our economy. At the end of the day, power is local. The power comes from within. I don't see the government having the necessary expertise and resources to fix our economy anytime soon. Let's face it, the production sector is down the drain. People's purchasing power is almost non-existent. And we have serious economic woes across the country, and I don't think that this deal,
but there is a hope that the sanctions relief are going to be able to fix a little bit the Iranian economy. But you bring up an important point, which is foreign relations. We will talk about those in just a moment. But Joseph, in Beirut, the foreign minister of Iran, after the deal was made, said that it was not perfect for anybody, but that it was the best achievement possible that could be reached. Did Iran get what it wanted, in your opinion?
Well, Iran got something much more than what it wanted. It averted a war. And in that sense, I think that Foreign Minister Zarif was correct, that in fact this was a win for Iran. But the devil is in the detail, and we have to see what concessions Iran has made. And by the looks of it, although I have not read the entire 100 pages document, no one has as of this point, Iran has made tremendous concessions in order to secure this piece of victory for them. So therefore, we'll just have to wait and see whether or not this was the kind of victory that everybody says it is.
Well, the moment sanctions are lifted, then Iran stands to gain access to billions of dollars in frozen assets, as we've been saying, a vital help for the economy, but of concern to regional rivals who are worried that Iran will expand its reach as well as its influence. Natasha Ghanem reports.
With this historic nuclear agreement, Iranians can throw off the decades-long chain of sanctions. Exports are expected to skyrocket. Billions of dollars in trade and investment in sectors such as oil, aviation technology, and housing could be pumped into the Iranian economy.
Iran is a gold mine. It's got a huge population. It's got a very able citizenry that can work and be creative and do more than just manual labor. It has a strong regional links, and it's got years and years of missed opportunities to make up for.
It could be a new era for Iran in terms of a reconfigured role in the region. Even amidst the sanctions, Iran's influence only grew. Currently, Iran is the main Shia power broker in the Middle East. In the war in Yemen, it's backing the rebel Houthis who pushed the president into exile. The president and his allies are drawing support from a Saudi-led coalition. Saudi Arabia is Iran's primary rival in the region and has been a constant critic of any nuclear deal. Iran has also extended its reach in Iraq. It's training and advising thousands of Shiite militia fighters in the battle against ISIL. And in Syria, it's propping up the government with money, weapons, and manpower. Iran's allies in Lebanon, the Shiite armed group Hezbollah, has also sent fighters to the Syrian front lines. Political analyst Rami Khouri says if Saudi Arabia and the Gulf Cooperation Council continue to take a hardline stance, Iran's influence could be contained somewhat.
I believe its regional influence will expand vastly in economic fields, technological fields. The Iranians are very advanced technologically, social and cultural and tourism and education issues and things like that. And on the back of that, you will get strong political new relationships.
Now that the U.S. and Iran have reached a détente after years of being enemies, Iran's position is expected to shift in the Middle East. Exactly how can't be predicted. Natasha Ghanem, Al Jazeera.
Ganbar, just before this report, you were insinuating, or telling us rather, that you don't believe that the sanctions relief is going to help the economy. There is the view that Iran will use the money from the sanctions relief to bankroll what some people say are Iran's regional ambitions. What do you make of that?
Well, Syria is in ruins. Iraq is in ruins. Where is this country going to spend that money? And let's not forget that there is a reason why Iran's assets have been frozen by the United States and its allies. They are virtually bankrupt. They don't have the money to pay back to Iran once the sanctions are lifted. I mean, as I said, this deal is too little, too late. It is not going to fix anything in this country anytime soon. It will take decades. I have confidence that it will take decades to fix this country's economy, let alone Iran having some money to, give as cash handouts to Hezbollah or the Palestinians. It will take some time. This is just the beginning. Iran and the United States have only tied the knots. Now for the wedding to work, we have to wait. We have to wait 30 years. And we know that we have so many key players in the region who also have stakes in this historic deal. They will not be that excited to see Iran having a better position and influence across the region, and they will fight back. I am positive.
Well, your
about
president
that.
seems to think otherwise, because Rouhani says that this deal opens a new chapter of cooperation between Iran and the outside world. Joseph Kashashian, is this deal a transformative event, a transformative moment in the political landscape of the Middle East?
It is not really. I think that those who are anticipating a change in the balance of power are really excited about a deal that is extremely complicated, that will emasculate Iran's power in the region for a decade or more, and it will give the opportunity for the other countries of the region to actually take preventive measures to prepare for whatever Iran intends to do a decade or two down the line. I think what's important at this point is two things, really. The good news is that war has been averted in the region, and that is something that everyone would presumably prefer over destruction and more mayhem throughout the region. The second point, equally important, is that some of the sanctions will be lifted on Iran, and that will provide the opportunity for the government of Iran to actually look inwards and try to pay attention to its own country, trying to fix its own home instead of worrying about the Houthis in Yemen and the Hezbollahis in Lebanon and elsewhere. So in a way, this is an opportunity for Iran. And the third point, the Arab countries led by Saudi Arabia and others who have an existential difference with Iran will also have got to come to terms with the fact that the world powers are looking at Iran as a potential new market for them to cooperate with, and they have to make adjustments accordingly. So therefore, on three levels,
how realistic do you think that is when it comes to the Gulf countries, Joseph?
Arise.
What does a deal with Iran mean for them?
Well, what it means to them is, again, the devil is in the detail. What it means to them is that there is a window of opportunity of a decade that will prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. The Arab countries led by Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and others are relatively weak because the Iranians have made so many advances in this region, in this area. So therefore, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and other countries will take advantage of this period of a decade to see whether or not they can also prepare for an eventuality. Now, if 10 years down the line or 15 years down the line, Iran restarts its nuclear program, then the Arab countries will be ready. If, on the other hand, the Iranians fulfill the promise that they have repeatedly made that they are not seeking nuclear weapons, then I think that the region will be calmer. There will be more dialogue between all of the neighboring countries, and some of the tensions that exist in the region will in fact diminish.
Joseph, from where you sit in Beirut, how do you read this deal and its impact on Lebanon, and specifically Iran's allies of Hezbollah? What does a strengthened Iran mean?
Well, there are two levels, really, you have to think at it. Obviously, Iran plays a major role with Hezbollah in Lebanon, but Hezbollah is not the dominant power in this country. It has the weapons, of course. Militarily, it is strong, but this is a government that is a national unity government that has various components in it, Sunnis, Shias, as well as Christians. So therefore, there is a balance of power inside the country that no group can in fact dominate. Hezbollah has tried to do this, of course, with Iranian help, but as we can see, Hezbollah has its hands full in Syria and may have committed a strategic error by deploying across the border in Syria, which weakened it considerably inside Lebanon. On the other hand, if in fact the Iranians decide that they're going to use some of the monies that they will get after sanctions are lifted in helping Hezbollah, then things will change, obviously, because Hezbollah is very much dependent on Iranian largesse. We will have to wait and see whether or not the Iranians will waste their money on regional powers instead of fixing their own problems at home.
Ganbar, the French president, we're speaking about Syria a little bit, and also the French president François Hollande said that major powers had to be vigilant about how Iran uses financial resources gained from sanctions relief, adding that Iran must show it is ready to help end the conflict, and he was referring to Syria in this particular place. But let me ask you this. Will Iran now be accepted more by the international community to help end the conflict in Syria?
Well, that is a possibility, but with what I just heard from your distinguished guest, I think he's absolutely right. The outside world doesn't care about the region. What we need now is regional understanding and dialogue with our neighbors. I wish we had this deal with Saudi Arabia and our Gulf countries, our Gulf neighbors, not the foreign powers, because at the end of the day, this is our home. This is about our security, our regional security. We should have better relations with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the leader of the Muslim world, so it should act like the leader of the Muslim world. It should call Iran to Riyadh. It should ask for negotiations with the Iranian officials so that they could find a good and lasting solution to the ongoing situation, to the terrible situation in Syria. We don't need the French. We don't need the French officials to tell us what to do.
Okay, let's just get some reaction from Tehran now. And here's some of what Iranians had to say after that deal was announced. Let's listen.
My personal opinion is that I wish they'd done this sooner so people wouldn't have to go through all these difficulties.
For sure, it's a good feeling, removing the sanctions that have put a lot of pressure on our country. And maybe people would say everything is okay, but you can see the effects on people, and I hope that the conclusions of the agreement would be what we're looking for and be great.
A lot of people will be happy. You will have a lot of, let's say, parties in the street between the young people. But in about 4 days, they will see that nothing has changed. And they have to wait for 4, 5, or 6 months so that the effects of the deal will start to affect the economy or to affect their life.
Well, let's bring in our second guest from Tehran now. Sadek Zibakalam is a professor of political science at the University of Tehran. And looking at the impact, Sadek, of this deal domestically, does this deal give Rouhani leverage over some of the more conservative politicians in Iran?
Let me begin by saying that the impact of the deal on domestic Iranian politics would be immense and would be long term. I think it will help moderate and reformist factions within Iranian domestic politics. Internationally, I think it will help Iran to come out of isolation, and it will calm anti-Americanism, anti-Westernism that has been the powerful images of Islamic Republic of Iran during the past 36 years.
Joseph, on this point of international isolation and Iran now coming out of it, as Zadek seems to think, if that were the case, could that reduce tension in the region? It does open the door to better ties between Iran and the West.
Well, obviously, Iran and the West have opened a new chapter. There is no question about that. But it does not mean that the West has closed its chapter with the rest of the region, with the Arab world specifically. I think this is not a zero-sum game. The West could have relations with both sides. And in a way, the Arab countries of the Arabian Peninsula, led by Saudi Arabia, will not be unhappy that a war has been averted. What they would want to make sure, however, is that the international community lives up to the dotted line and what the agreement presumably intends to achieve, namely to deny Iran to become a nuclear power. If that is the objective, and the Western powers that have entered into this agreement with Iran will fulfill those requirements, then I think everybody will be happy. But I think that the West will have a responsibility now, not just to maintain its ties with the Arab countries at the levels that they have been in the past, but also to make sure that the new overture with Iran will not be at their expense.
And, you know, we're talking both here about politics as well as economics, because they both really go hand in hand. So when you look at the international repercussions of this deal, Sadiq, and foreign investment in Iran, by how much do you expect it to increase, if it will at all?
I believe that the most important immediate impact of the deal would be the coming of foreign investment companies, particularly in energy sector, gas and petrochemical and oil industry, which is much needed by Iranian energy sector.
But will Iran have to reform its own laws when it comes to foreign investment? Because there are some laws that limit any meaningful foreign investment in the country.
Certainly, you are right. Iran must provide legal guarantee for outside and foreign investment. And this is I anticipate this is something that that will bound to happen in Iran.
How will sanctions relief filter down to the people?
Well, I think the effect of the sanction have been more psychological, although I'm not denying that there have been economic aspect of sanctions. But more than the economic aspect of it, I think it's the psychological. Many Iranians, particularly younger generation Iranian, the youth, they felt that they have been trapped because of the sanctions. Many Iranian academics felt that they cannot communicate, that they cannot establish link with Western universities, etc., etc. So I think to feel that those psychological barriers have been removed would be a tremendous boost for Iranian morale.
Joseph, besides the psychological barriers that Sadiq is talking about, real economic reforms have to be implemented in the country, do they not? What do you see as the priority for Rouhani at this point after this deal was made? And also, how easy will it be for him to go ahead with any reforms that he might want to go ahead when there certainly is domestic opposition in the country?
President Rouhani promised, in fact, in 2013 when he won the elections, that this will be his priority, to put order at home after decades not only of sanctions but poor management on the Iranian parts, and the rest is well known. Now Iran has an opportunity really to open a new chapter in its own life. It has to put its own house in order if it wants to take advantage of the new opportunity that has been created.
On that note, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Joseph Kashashian, for joining us from Beirut, and Sadiq Zibakalam, you were joining us from Tehran. And also we had Ganbar Naderi, he was joining us a little earlier on the program. Well, thank you for watching. As always, we welcome your thoughts. You can get in touch through our program page on aljazeera.com. You can post your comments on facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also tweet us at AJ Inside Story. From myself and the whole team here in Doha, goodbye for now.